Welcome to the coaching circle. Today, this is a bit of a special episode, actually. I'm going to be sharing something, a passion project of mine that is coming to fruition, and I'll talk more about that towards the end of this episode. But what I do want to talk to you about is how fascinating it is when we think about business and the very uncanny way that business has of showing you exactly where you're still out of alignment. And, if you think that, oh, okay, I'm just building a business, what you actually find is that you are building a mirror. Yes, you heard that right. You are building a mirror because your business will reflect back to you all the places where you don't feel safe, where you don't feel worthy or ready to receive. And you can have the best strategy in the world, you can have structure, you can have a marketing plan, but what determines how far you go isn't just your skill set or your effort, it's your emotional state. And this is something that I do so much work. I've done so much work on myself around this and still do. And it's something that I do loads of work with my clients because your business will always reveal your relationship with yourself. This is first and foremost. And so every decision that you make, every client interaction that you have, every opportunity that you say yes or no to, it's all carrying emotional energy. And whether you realize it or not, that emotional energy is shaping your results in business. This is why emotions and emotional mastery matters so much in business, because when people tell me that they feel stuck or they feel overwhelmed or they're unable to grow their business, it's rarely, very rarely, because they just don't know what to do. And in today's world of information technology, you can find pretty much anything you need on YouTube or through ChatGPT. Like, it's all there for you. And so it's not a case of people not knowing what to do. It's because of how people feel when they think about doing what they need to do. And so underneath every strategy, there is a fear. Well, every strategy that doesn't get done, there is a fear of judgment, a fear of failure, a fear of success even, or just a fear of being seen and being visible. If we look underneath procrastination, there's always fear underneath procrastination. There could even be shame and self-doubt. If we look at burnout, underneath burnout, there'll be guilt and there'll be resentment or a need to prove your worth because you don't feel good enough. And we live in a world that, for the most part, celebrates logic and action. And I see a lot of high achievers that will go so far with just logic and action, but they'll still get to a sticking point where things don't progress where they want. Because beneath every spreadsheet or strategy or goals list is a nervous system that is just trying to feel safe. And it doesn't matter how good you are at blocking that out, it's still there. It's still going to be having an effect on you. And so this is where things get really interesting, because business will trigger every place that you don't feel emotionally safe. Isn't that fun? And it is actually a good thing though, because it means it's showing you where your next level of evolution is waiting for you. And this is why I think business is such an important vehicle for your personal evolution. So let's break some of these down a little bit. And one of the most common ones I think that I hear people talk about is a feeling of overwhelm. And overwhelm will generally come up when there's some level of growth or launching something new or whatever that might be. And you can look at overwhelm from two different viewpoints. And one is, and especially in NLP, they'll say, well, overwhelm is that you've got too many things in your head and you need to write out a list of all the things that you feel overwhelmed out and bring it down into a list. And that will help to a point, definitely, because it will essentially help you see and help your body get the idea that you can handle what's in front of you. It'll make it more manageable chunks. But generally when we're in overwhelm, it's our body that's saying, you know what, I don't feel safe to handle all of this that I've got going on. So it could be there's a fear of getting something wrong. It could be there's a fear of being seen as incapable. It could be a fear of being judged or abandoned, even if you succeed. So people tend to pull back. They might delay the launch of something. They might get busy tweaking their website again, or just fill in the day with busy work, because sitting in the feeling would be hugely uncomfortable because of that emotion that sits underneath. So overwhelm, although it's closely linked to a workload or a lot of things going on, is the emotional load that's attached to the meaning that we've made about it. And so this is, and you might be feeling this at this time, because I can tell you, I've had a lot of clients telling me just recently that they're in overwhelm, both male and female clients. So, that's something that's happening a lot. We come towards the end of the year, lots of things are ramping up. There's been sales, there's been, people wanting stuff before Christmas, all that kind of stuff. Now, another emotion or another set of meanings or situations that cause people emotional discomfort is around visibility. And so for some people, showing up and being visible, going to network meetings, showing up on social media, doing video, doing PR, podcasts, guests, public speaking, all of those things can be terrifying. And that used to be me. I used to have a terrible fear of public speaking and being visible, but we have to understand, like, fear of visibility is not laziness. It's a form of protection, trying to keep safe. You might be sabotaging your results. People say, oh, I'm self-sabotaging. And that could be a self-protection that's disguised as logic as well. You might be trying to logic a way out of things, and it's just self-protection. When we over-deliver in business, if you're over-delivering, it's generally not just about being generous. It's usually some kind of guilt or fear of disappointing other people. When we avoid growth, it's not just lack of clarity that's a problem. It could be fear of being exposed, being a failure, or, like I said, even having a success, like being a success and having an extra workload. And how is that going to make you feel? I remember one time I had to clear a block around growing my business because unconsciously I had a fear I was going to get more clients that were going to be hard work, because I'd had a couple of hard work clients. So that was the fear of having to deal with that situation, which I sorted out. So all of these are emotional patterns, and they're not business problems per se, they're people problems, but you are a person with a business, and so it's going to affect your business. And these patterns often start long before business even entered your realms of thinking of something that you were going to do. So where does all this really begin? That is a good question, isn't it? And for most people, the emotional patterns that show up in business began in childhood. And I always say this, it could be different levels. I've got people that are dealing with these patterns at startup stage. I've got people that are doing multiple, 7 and 8 figures, who are having different issues with this sort of stuff that stems back to childhood, because these problems will show up when there is extra stress on your nervous system, because the capacity to manage what's going on will be affected when there's more and more pressure. So it could be growth stage, it could be, starting up a business and those kinds of things. So we need to think about, what are some of these childhood patterns that show up in business? Well, you might have learned when you were a child that love had to be earned. So you might be over-delivering and undercharging. You might have learned as a child that being visible drew criticism or had people laugh at you. So you might stay quiet even when you've got something really powerful to say, or you might be avoiding, showing up in meetings or online. If you learned that making mistakes brought punishment or shame or humiliation, then you might procrastinate, waiting for, the perfect moment that never ever comes. That perfect time when you're not going to feel anxious or fearful or any kind of tightness in your body. And those emotional imprints become the filters through which you make your decisions. Right? And then, so if you're in business, it just magnifies them, because generally the decisions that you're making in business are much more public. More people are going to see them, or you have the perception that more people are going to see them. So when you're building a business, you are constantly putting yourself in situations that require emotional maturity. So things like leadership, even if you're a solopreneur, so you've got self-leadership, responsibility, visibility, receiving, and being able to trust. Business doesn't create these emotional patterns, it simply reveals them. It simply provides the opportunity for those patterns of yours, if they're unresolved, to be triggered. And this is why I so often say that business is one of the greatest motivators and instigators of personal growth. Honestly, if you're here to evolve, if you want to evolve, start a business. You'll want some help with that, but start a business, because it will do it. It's the same as when you move into leadership roles. It's a similar type of thing, but it will show you every place that you're out of alignment with the identity that you say that you want to embody. Because let's face it, if you start a business, most likely part of it is going to be, I want to help people. Part of it is going to be, I want to be in control of my own time, money, energy, what it is that I do, all of those kinds of things. So that means you need to you need to be visible. You need to express yourself. You need to express your desires, your wants. You need to go out and ask and market and sell and promote what it is that you do, and learn how to communicate effectively with people, and do all of those kinds of things that you likely did not have to do when you were in a job. And then the bigger your business grows, then the more of this that you'll need to do. So this is where the real work happens. And if you've been around for a while, you'll know that I am a business mentor, but I'm also a mindset mentor. And my background, so before I started coaching and training, so I taught NLP and hypnosis and timeline therapy and a bunch of other modalities for 10 years. I was teaching a lot of coaches and wellbeing practitioners and service providers and leaders, all of the coaching and communication skills. But before that, I worked in banking and finance and accounting for about 20 years. So I've got a real mind for business, but I'm particularly fascinated in the mindset of business, because this is the work that I've had to do for myself to stay in business for 10 years and to grow my business and be fully supported by my business and run a successful business. And it's the work that I do with so many other business owners as well. And so sometimes they might be coming to me for some kind of strategy. However, what we most commonly work on is creating emotional freedom, because again, it comes back down to most business owners know what they need to do. If you don't know what you need to do, it's pretty easy to find out. That's not the problem. It's finding emotional safety. It's creating emotional safety. That is the big thing. Feeling safe to be seen, feeling safe to receive, feeling safe to ask, to decide, to lead. Until you feel safe in your nervous system, you've created this emotional freedom that allows you to feel safe in your nervous system, your strategy just won't land, and it will feel hard. It will be an energy that you carry that affects your marketing, that affects your lead generation, that affects your sales conversions. Everything will be tied to how emotionally safe you feel in creating your outcome. So when a client feels safe in their body and congruent in their energy, then everything changes. Right? They show up differently. They communicate with authority. They stop second guessing themselves, and they start trusting their intuition again. And I talk to people about this all the time. I had a client text me just yesterday actually saying, oh, I was just talking to another one of my clients these people know each other. And he was saying we were both commenting about how awesome it is working with you and how it helps us get to our next level of business. Now, these are guys that have got types of businesses that I don't really look at their business strategy much at all. I look at that they've got structure, because usually there's some kind of stress or anxiety that I'm helping them resolve. And in that, I will look at the structure of their business and say, okay, what's going on there? That's part of this stress. But it's always the emotional stuff. I'm resolving the emotional stuff. And once we resolve the emotional stuff, they know what they need to do and they get it done. Sometimes it's getting some reminders about the types of structure that they need to have in place that will create more emotional safety for them. Boundaries, processes, procedures, all of those kinds of things are really important because they create the emotional safe space for you to work with them. Okay, so once we get all this set up and then people feel this sense of safety, well, then they're all go. Things move forward in such a fast manner. And this is all masculine and feminine energy stuff as well, like the structure, the boundaries, having that really clear way of backing yourself and creating a safe space for you to then, that's the masculine, and for you then to feel safe emotionally, which is the feminine, so that you can trust and tune into your intuition. That's the masculine and feminine. Once you've got that right, you become extremely magnetic. And that kind of alignment, it can't be faked because it's felt. People can feel it. It's attractive. So let's go now another level and think about this from the connection between emotions and beliefs, because there's a fine line here. And especially if you're someone who studied NLP or timeline therapy or hypnosis or, some kind of psychology along those lines, traditionally we talk about limiting beliefs and negative emotions as being separate things. And usually we release emotions first, negative emotions first, and then we get to work changing beliefs if there's any beliefs left, because usually when you resolve the emotional stuff, all the rest of the problems disappear, because it's the emotional stuff that will drive our behavior. This is really important. But what I've seen time and time again is that beliefs and emotions, they're just not that separate. They're fused together. And a belief is simply a meaning that's emotionally charged. Okay, we've created a meaning at some point in time. We've created a meaning about something and said, okay, this is what that means. And we've got an emotion that's attached to it. So an old negative emotion doesn't get stuck because of an event that's happened. It gets stuck because of the meaning that we make it about an event. Okay, so emotions naturally are meant to come up. You notice them, you acknowledge them, you feel them, you process them, and they pass. And emotions can pass when they're properly processed. They can pass in 90 seconds, right? We don't have to get stuck with emotions. But if we haven't been able to do that and we create some kind of false meaning about something, well, then we can get stuck with an emotional imprint that we then filter so much information through. And so let's have some examples of this, right? Okay, perhaps as a child, when you spoke up, perhaps you were criticized. And so then you create a meaning that says it's not safe to be seen, or it's not safe to speak up. And thinking about speaking up or being seen creates fear or anxiety in you, right? That meaning then holds emotional energy. It could be fear, it could be shame, it could be hurt, and it stays with you until that meaning shifts. So it's not the emotion that's repeating, it's the story that the emotion's fused to. And the emotion is simply the body's way of confirming the belief. We just go through these stories because our unconscious mind will die to be right. It will die to know how things are. And it's forever creating meaning about how things are. And so when we shift the meaning, the emotional charge dissolves and the nervous system updates its truth, and then the emotion no longer needs to exist. And this is the foundation of the turning point process. There are some very important differences in the turning point process. The turning point process is the process that I've created after years of working with clients, releasing emotions and beliefs, and really understanding the structure of how people create their reality and how people get stuck. Most importantly, this process was when I realized people were getting stuck and there was this really important piece missing. So in the turning point process, we unstick this fusion. We unstick the old identity from the emotions that keep recreating that same reality. And you don't have to relive the pain of wherever these old emotions come from. You just need to see the truth beyond the meaning that what you once created. And when that happens, then the emotion and meaning unhook from each other, and it unhooks from your identity as you are somebody, and that's obviously connected to this negative emotion. And so you naturally return to clarity and calm and confidence, your natural state of being, who you were before any of that stuff happened. So you can start leading from your present self rather than your past self, rather than your child self. You stop managing all of those old emotions that have been stuck on a loop, and you integrate them and process them and, release them. And that's when your business will start to reflect that freedom, because your business will no longer be triggering those old loops, those old meanings that you created that are then getting triggered as you show up in your business. And this is why I really created this process, because like I said, I've seen so often that there's so many modalities, and different modalities, they have different amounts of effectiveness, but sometimes people still get stuck with some real core stuff that's too fused to their identity. But when you free yourself emotionally, you open up the space for your full expression. When you're fully expressed in who you are, and you're not trying to hide that or avoid it or judge it, then you'll automatically start making more money. You'll automatically start making more impact. You'll automatically start magnetizing more people to you. So this is where we start looking at an evolved view of personal safety and responsibility, because this is something else in the turning point that makes it very different from traditional sorts of mindset work. And in many of the personal development models, we're taught around cause and effect, and that we're taught to take full responsibility for everything that happens in our lives. And this idea can be very empowering, because it gets us out of victimhood, because as long as you're thinking somebody else did something to you and you're blaming them for doing it to you, and that's the cause of how you feel now, well, then you're a victim. And you can't resolve something where you're a victim. It becomes this self kind of punishing thing, right? We're like, they did it to me, and so it's their fault that I feel like this. And if it's their fault that you feel like you do now, well, then you're not ever going to be able to change that. Okay, so we don't want to interpret being at cause or taking responsibility to mean that you caused your own pain. Okay, there's an element where, like, yes, you caused it by deciding how to respond to whatever might have happened, right? But as a child, you don't have the ability to understand that yet. Okay, so that part of you that was once hurt or abandoned or misunderstood can end up feeling, for some people, blamed rather than healed. I've heard people tell me, like, oh, but didn't I choose this? Wasn't this part of my journey that I chose to have this pain and da da da? It's like, look, it might be part of your journey, and it might be where you've learned some things, but you have to understand that you didn't deserve to feel like that in the first place. This is a really key thing. You are responsible for how you feel now. and for what you choose to carry and for how you respond. And definitely as an adult, you've got the ability, if someone says or does something to you, you've got the ability to choose how you respond. But you don't generally have that ability as a child. And this is really key. So the purpose of this work isn't to force you to find a positive learning from pain, a positive learning from that event and what happened to you. The key thing that you want to be able to do is, if you know that there was something that happened as a child that's got this emotional loop and it's kind of fused to your identity, the key thing that you need to be able to do is to be able to recognize that you never deserved to feel that way to start with. And this is the difference. You didn't deserve to feel that way. You didn't deserve to feel unsafe. You didn't deserve to feel unseen. You didn't deserve to feel unworthy. Right? You didn't deserve to feel humiliated. You didn't deserve to feel scared. You didn't deserve any of that. It might have happened. And it might, and recognizing it happened because of something else that was perhaps done to you or said to you. Right? But understanding that you still deserve to feel safe. This distinction changes everything, because the moment that you realize that you deserved to feel safe when you were a child, when you finally realize that, you can finally give yourself that safety now. Right? This is key. You can hold that younger version of you with truth and compassion instead of analysis. Instead of like analyzing, oh, well, what did I learn from that? Well, I can tell you the thing that you need to learn is that if somebody did or said something to you as a child and it made you feel unsafe or unseen or uncared for or unloved or anything, then it wasn't okay that happened to you. You didn't deserve to feel like that. That person's behavior wasn't okay. This is a real key thing that you need to know. And like I said, it's not about going and blaming those people. I'm sure whoever, they were doing the best that they could with what they had at the time. We appreciate that, and we recognize that you didn't deserve to feel that way. This is the awareness that creates real safety for you. Because once you recognize that no one ever had the right to make you feel small, scared, unworthy, shame, anything else, then you stop needing to defend yourself against feeling that again in the present. You get your power back. This is the essence of the turning point. And there's a whole process that I take people through, and it's a fast process as well. It's fast. It generally, we can go through and shift things very, very quickly without people having to, be able to access too much in their unconscious mind. It's a conversational practice that works really, really well. I've used it so many times. I've taught it to some of my clients. They're using it. It gets amazing, amazing results. So the turning point is not about rewriting history or pretending that everything was fine, or just you getting learnings from, something that happened in the past that happened to you. It's about seeing the truth clearly with compassion and maturity so that you can separate what happened from who you are, so that you can recognize what you're deserving of. And when you see that distinction, the nervous system relaxes. You no longer need to control or overachieve or prove to have safety, because you finally feel it. And that's when genuine emotional freedom becomes really possible. This is so, so exciting. So when you feel triggered in business, whether it's with fear or frustration, or, there's some kind of comparisonitis thing happening, instead of seeing it as a setback, you get to see it as a signal. It's pointing you towards a part of yourself that didn't yet have the capacity to hold that emotional safety. And this is where personal evolution happens, right? Is by evolving beyond all of these, fears and doubts. So every business challenge is a doorway into greater self-awareness. Every emotional trigger is an opportunity to meet yourself with compassion, with maturity, and with that truth of what you deserve. because you can't build a business with your old emotional identity. Okay, that whole act of building a business, if you've never had a business before, the whole act of building a business is going to change who you are. It's going to bring more of you to the surface. And so you don't have to keep carrying those old stories that were never yours to begin with. Yay! So this whole process, and like I said, it's so important that we understand how to create emotional mastery for ourselves. If you're in business, you need to be able to create emotional mastery. You have to be able to understand your emotions. You have to be able to recognize them and acknowledge them and process them and let them go so that you can step up fully expressed. And this is exactly what my new book, The Turning Point, is all about. So not only have I created a process, but I'm writing a book about it. And it is the combination of years of me helping people dissolve the emotional charge behind their old stories and really help people return to who they were before they were told who to be. Right? This is the problem. It's the conditioning. It's the imprints that we took from everybody else. So this book is I'm so excited for this book. It is my passion for people to understand their emotions, because I know for me, I was always a very sensitive child, I was a very emotional child, and I had very little support around me for my emotions, and they carried with me way into adulthood. And that's why I've been so passionate about this work and shifting and creating this change, but making a process that makes it so much easier for people to understand and to create this emotional freedom and emotional mastery for themselves. So it's going to be available in print early in 2026. And what's exciting is that you can now pre-order your copy for the very special pre-launch price of just $19.95 plus $5 postage. And there's a link in the show notes where you can go and grab yourself a copy. And if you can't find it, message me, I'll send it through to you, and you can order pre-launch. And then as soon as it's printed, I will personally sign your copy and pop it in the post so that you can be the first people to have it in your hands and to really read through this and create this emotional freedom for yourself. So if you've ever felt like, you've done the work and you've done the journaling and you've done the mindset and you've done the courses and the affirmations, but you still feel like there's emotionally something stuck or holding you back, or it could just be that, you've got big goals and you're just finding more stuff. This is my area of specialty, and this book will show you a faster, cleaner way to release the past and really embody and fully express you and your truth. So if your business has been feeling heavy or emotional or confusing lately, maybe even overwhelming, remember, it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because your business is revealing something where you are ready to evolve. That is super exciting, my friend. Your emotions aren't blocking your success. They're guiding you toward alignment. So every time you recognize and integrate what's going on underneath for you, you expand your capacity to lead, to receive, and to create freely. This is the work I love. This is why my clients keep working with me year on year. I've got so many clients that have worked with me now for 3, 4, 5 years and more, because they just keep growing and evolving with me. And I love that so much. So if you've got big goals and you feel like there's some more evolution for you, reach out, because like I said, grab a copy of the book or reach out to me if you want to have a chat and do some more work with me. The real work of growth is not becoming someone new, right? It's not changing who you are. It's remembering who you are. It's remembering the truth of who you are beneath all of that conditioning. And I'm here to champion you all the way. Because when you feel emotionally free, business stops feeling like a pressure and it starts feeling like a possibility. Business is the most brilliant vehicle for you to create what it is that you want in your life. The time freedom, the purpose freedom, the financial freedom, creativity, all of that is available through the vehicle of business, as long as you can master your emotions. This is the key thing. So if this conversation resonated with you, if you feel like there was stuff in here that you know somebody else could really benefit from hearing, please do them a favor and share this. We need to get this message out. I am here to help people get out of their fears and become fully expressed, because this, my friends, is where we're going to change the world that we live in. And that is something that is worth sharing. So check it out now. Grab yourself a pre-release special, and I will speak to you again very soon.